Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Pod Stallions. My name is Brian. Him are Jason. Jason, how are you doing, man?
I are bad.
Are bad?
No, I was being bizarro.
So good.
I'm well, thank you, sir. How are you?
Cannot complain. Cannot complain.
And who'd listen if we did?
No, well, our listeners, hopefully.
Would they? Maybe we should do a standalone episode, a very simple episode where we just bitch about our lives.
Bitching with Jason and Brian. We can start another podcast on another thing.
For 90 minutes. I forgot one more thing.
Yeah.
It's nice to hear your voice. Nice to be back in the saddle, so to speak.
You're in a saddle?
Well, you know, the pod saddle.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The paddle. It's nice to be back in the paddle.
You talk about the paddle in there, remember?
Listen, let me tell you something. I know what people say about you, and I don't believe most of it, and I defend you. But I will say this: every now and then, you have a great idea.
Oh,
they don't come along. They don't come along often, and you really have to hunt for them. But when they come, boy, they're Emmy winning, and this might be one of the best ideas you've ever had for a topic. I think I'm putting it up in the Hall of Fame of your ideas.
No kid, Mister. Oh well, yeah.
I love this idea.
I like all great ideas. I came up with it while walking my dog, and I texted it to you.
That's right.
So that it was not lost in the ether, which I also enjoy.
Yes, which you was like you were like Pasteur when you then Eureka almost. Yeah, great. It's a great topic. And what is the topic today?
The topic today is video stores. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is it's almost like not a shared, but we of Gen X watched them come and we watched them go. Yes. We didn't have them when we were growing up, then we did have them, and now we don't have them. And I think we are witness to this. You know, obviously, like, you know, millennials and Gen Z, like my children, they did have them at one point, but they are fuzzy memories depending on how old you are. And some people were just smack dab, you know, lucky enough to always have them. But right. Like to me and to you, these were like amazing things to have in the 80s. Like, you know, and it can't be underestimated that if you missed a movie as a kid, it may be gone forever, you know?
Yeah, the pattern, I mean, certainly in this country, the pattern was the movie hits, it does its business. Maybe it's out for 5-6 months, sometimes long, but, you know, generally speaking, or if it was something, you know, that maybe it wasn't the thing you ran out to see, but it was smaller, it maybe lasted not quite as long. But if it was a mega film or something you really, really liked, you kept your eyes open for the dollar theaters. And you saw that in the paper, it, you know, a little bit of your heart kind of went, oh, it's already, which meant that, I mean, you're not 8 years old going, oh, the box office is going down. It feels so bad for the studio. It's not like that. You're 8 years old and you're going, that means it's only a few weeks away from never being seen again, basically, or being in 4 years on television or something.
Yeah, and even television. I was just explaining this on the Pod Stallions group today, which was I can remember being a kid and like the WKBW Channel 7 would play the movie for a Sunday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, my folks not only went to church, but we walked to church.
Oh.
We only lived like 2 blocks from church. So I would, get home at like 1:10, and be halfway through a movie that I didn't know the name of half the time. Like, I mean, if it had apes in it, I realized it was a Planet of the Apes film. But, and I would watch, half a movie.
Yeah.
And so, like, that was sometimes they were really cool movies. In fact, one of the movies was Journey to the Far Side of the Sun. I watched half of it. And then it played in my local theater. And I can remember, like, oh, I'm going to go see that. Like, and then I realized, like, oh, this isn't a new movie. I saw this, like midway through.
They took you had local theaters that would run.
Oh, we had a local theater that was just bizarre.
I understood what older movies were from sometimes seeing them on, syndicated, what I didn't know was called syndicated then. Or you'd have movies like, Lady and the Tramp or Fantasia or something that would get those re-releases to go and see. That was the only way to really, see them. But the dollar theater, meant like, okay, well, let's go get it. Let's go catch it one more time. And then basically you wouldn't have a chance. I mean, I don't know when my brain sort of figured out that eventually everything goes to television. I don't think I understood that. I mean, I think part of the process was, once this thing is out of the theaters, maybe I'll never see it again. I mean, this is it.
Absolutely, yeah.
You got the photo novel or the comic book or the whatever it is, but you better go see it again.
We didn't have like, I didn't go to the theater a lot as a kid. The movie theaters were one town over. My folks didn't really indulge us with movies that much. My grandma would take me to Disney films. But, there was a local theater downtown, and occasionally they would play like weird stuff. It was a second run theater.
Right.
And when I was like 10 or 11, I could go down by myself and go see a movie. And I did that a lot. But like I said, like I remember once, it was probably 83. I went down because it said in the paper Strange Brew was playing, and I thought, I'll go see Strange Brew for a third time. Right. And when I got down there, this is how weird that theater was. They were playing Star Trek: The Motion Picture. They were playing Star Trek: The Motion Picture in 83. You know,
common mistake. Those two films.
Yeah, they're exactly like. And I remember going
mixed up more than you think.
As a kid, going, I don't think I want to sit through Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Like,
blasphemy from young.
Well, I hadn't quite.
How little he knew back then. What his
and well, I understand where I was coming from there.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. We both have the experience of it's like 10, 11. You walked to the theater. We both had this experience of our certainly my mom or our parents, whatever, dropping me and my friend off at the movie theater.
Yeah.
On a Saturday to go see Buck Rogers in the 25th Century on a Saturday, because there was, the theater was like connected to the mall or like across the parking lot.
Yeah.
I'll pick you up. I'll pick you up. We both must have worn watches. I don't recall of a kid. I know I used to wear a vest with a pocket watch as a child. I was very eccentric. No.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember. I think I had a Star Wars digital watch, the red digital, the first Texas Instruments ones that came out. I think I wore that everywhere.
Weren't they like? Didn't they get hot?
But I was just thinking, how would I have known where exit to go to and when to meet her? I must have had a watch because there were clocks in malls, of course. But I was 8 or 9, and my buddy's like 10 or 11, and we're alone in a theater. In the lobby, in the theater for 2 hours, and then walking to the mall and hanging out for 2 more hours until my mom, picked us up. That was not uncommon. Both of us had these experiences of being that little and going
absolutely. Yeah.
To see a movie. So movies were, I think it's a little bit different for me than you. Like, we saw a lot of movies. Like, my dad liked going to the movies. My mom sort of, my parents were actually very, they were seeing Fellini films when they hit America, and they were
Okay.
they knew who Truffaut was, and Jacques Tati. My dad introduced me to Mr. Hulot's Holiday. I must have been about 11 the first time I saw that, and I got into all the Jacques Tati films, and then old films that he'd take me to Bogart revival things, or like they'd run, this week it's Forbidden Planet, next week it's Day the Earth Stood Still stuff. So I got, one of the things I remember him best for is the education, I mean, if it weren't for him knowing that Python was on, Channel 2 public television, I don't know when I would have discovered it, but I was watching it when I was 6 with my older brothers, on channel, in 77 or maybe 78, whatever it was. And so he took me to the movies quite a bit, and multiple Star Wars multiple times, anything sci-fi at least once. Most of the sci-fi stuff, I get at least went to, one time. But again, this was this notion of, if it's gone, it's gone. You may see it on television at some point, like the Bond films. My education on Bond was mainly the ABC Sunday night movie. I completely associated the Bond films with that venue. That's where I saw most of them the first time. I couldn't place when they came out. I got confused at first about, George Lazenby, like, who's this guy? Why isn't Connery there, or whatever? But when did you first discover or understand or get exposed to or come upon VHS? Like, do you remember when you sort of discovered what it was?
Yeah. My dad had a buddy, who's probably my dad's best friend, and he had probably, like, so this is probably like 1980. I was a little late to the game, but like 1980 or 81, he had the first VCR I'd ever seen. And he had 2 movies. So it's probably 81. He had 2 movies. He had Airplane and The Warriors.
Classic.
And every time, and I have this huge nostalgia for both films.
Sure.
Because every time, it's that you can be taken right back to the, the plush couch, and the cigarette smoke wafting in from the kitchen, and
Kid, you want a beer? Go grab a beer.
No, I'm 10. Nobody was giving me beers. And watching both those films, and I watched both those films. Oh, frick. We were there a lot. And I probably watched both those films like 10 times.
So that was what? What'd you say? 80? You said 80
81, I'd say. 80, 81. Like, whenever those came out on, because Airplane came out in 80, but it was definitely after that.
Obviously. And your family did not have a VCR at that point.
Oh, no, we didn't get a VCR until 85.
I was trying to figure out the same thing, and I think it might have been around the same time that we first got a VCR. But I don't. It seems weird to think that once I knew what VHS was and the options, or what a video store was, that we wouldn't have gotten it earlier. But I don't know if we got it earlier. But my first exposure to a videocassette player was, of course, my cousin David.
Oh, yeah.
Because he had one, and it was, these things were expensive at the time.
Yeah.
And he, I don't remember if he got his mom, my aunt, to rent these things, or how he got them. But there were certain movies that we would rent over and over and over again. Like, I would be over at his house. His house was not within walking distance, so it was whenever they had to babysit me or something, and my mom had weird hours at a certain point. And but we would rent movies kind of over and over again. And one of them, there were 2. One of them I think might have been Blade Runner, or American Werewolf. I forget, but I know for sure.
Oh, yeah.
The one that sticks out the most that we watched over and over and over again was The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing.
Wow. Yeah.
is such a great memory to go, okay, that is, because that to me is like defines, I think, most of us that are in the same age boat kind of and experience the same things. Is I wouldn't have been able to go to that film because I don't know who would have taken me, but VHS, you can now sit in and there was something kind of illicit about it, like it was like, or boobies, when there were boobies.
Oh yeah, no, that's
like,
exactly where I was going to go with that.
Yeah, like
yeah.
This is this is kind of adult all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, you all of a sudden you were 18.
Because other than the Howling, sneaking into the Howling, that story that I've told, sneaking into that would have been the first full length R-rated movie I would have seen, would have been on VHS. There would have been no way for me to see it. And so
I think the Jamie Lee Curtis in Trading Places. I remember I got into Trading Places at the Downtown Theater, and it was like, oh, I shouldn't be here,
I'm scared.
I wasn't scared. That was a revelation of like, oh yeah, they didn't check my age, when she got naked in it,
It was the lady in the Howling at the campfire when she disrobes. It was like, I mean, I got like, I remember like it was yesterday, but it was like, and then I thought the cops were going to come in and pull us out. We were going to go to the drunk tank for the night.
Get your mother on the line.
Your life is ruined. So he would rent a lot of stuff. So a lot of stuff like I mean, I'm jumping around time wise, but like Life Force. I wouldn't have seen.
Never heard of it.
I wouldn't have seen Life Force in the theater, but you better believe we rented it quite a bit once it hit.
Why?
But do you remember like your first the first like video store that you rented from?
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you asked that, because I was gonna. The first video store in my town was a stereo shop. They put up a second floor. It was called Whitby. It's still in business, actually. Whitby Audio. They had a loft, and it was called Whitby Video. And even when I didn't have a VCR, I would go there and look at all the boxes.
Yep.
So for my 12th birthday, instead of a present, I asked that we could rent a VCR and movies.
Oh, wow.
And my parents said, okay. So the first two films I ever rented were Stripes and Stripes, Laser Blast. I rented three things. And Hardware Wars.
Oh, wow.
And I think my dad rented some movies too, but I can't remember what he rented. Yeah, that was like and you had the VCR and the tapes for the weekend back then. So I probably watched Stripes 3 times, and I loved Hardware Wars, and it had other films on it like Porclips Now, and Laser Blast was my first experience with a film that I realized like now that was like drive-in ripoff. It was a Charles Band film, and
it's funny when your taste buds, you start to notice when something is like subpar.
Yeah,
there's a certain moment in life as a kid where you go, I don't know if this is the kind of money they're putting into this movie. That
I started to realize that like all the photos in Starlog I had seen of it are like the only interesting scenes in the film.
Yeah.
Like they had some Dave Allen animation in there.
Yeah.
And that looked really cool, but then they like completely blew their wad on that, and the rest of the film is an idiot driving around in a van shooting people with a laser gun, and it has no plot.
It's awful.
Yeah, and I still don't have any affection for it. Like they released it on DVD with an action figure and stuff, and I was like, no, I don't want to own Laser Blast.
Yeah, it's still just the little turtle aliens that. Friggin' movie.
So, what was your first experience at a video store?
Well, I was trying to think of it, and I think I've narrowed it down. It was I grew up, East St. Paul area, and there was a place, and I've always, home, something video, something, and I remember, this is what's weird about this. Thinking about this, I remember the guys behind the counter, And they would see me coming when I was 14, 15, 16, whatever, because I was like, once, oh, it's a 2-day rental and I can, whatever. Like once I discovered, had seen enough, Woody Allen films. I'm like, okay, I got to get to this. What, Bogart, where can I, and they started to appreciate the stuff that I would come in and rent. They were kind of shocked that at my age, I was curious about the movies that I would come up and ask about. But the other thing that I would do is they'd have those great video promotional posters for things.
Oh yeah.
And
I still have a stack of those somewhere.
I started doing the whole like, what happens with that when it comes down? So
yeah.
You guys like throw it out? Like, no, why do you want it? Like, really? Could I have it? And then they put my name on the back of it. And I would do this at record stores too. Like I had a big poster of Peter Gabriel, like the cover. It was huge.
Oh, cool.
Some record I was like, did you guys just throw those out? And they're like, yeah, usually. Why, do you want it? Like, well, yeah, I mean, it's cool. Like, well, it's still going to be up for like another month or so. I'm like, that's cool if I leave you my number. And that's what I would, plaster my room with, or these movie posters or video type. Like, I think the poster from Brazil for the movie Brazil that I had on the wall, like in high school, was from the videos.
Well, to be honest with you, there was like our town just became, there was a video store every block. Mm-hmm. It was a golden age. And there was one store that was really shit. It was too small. There was no parking. Mm-hmm. And they would sell the posters for like $1. And I remember going in there, and I still have these. For $3, I got the Planet of the Apes 5 tapes that make you go ape poster. In fact, that's hanging up in the next room. I got Godzilla's 25th birthday, where he's blowing out a cake.
Oh, I remember that poster.
And I got Doctor Who and the Daleks, the Peter Cushing poster.
Wow.
And so, yeah, and funny story, this is flash forward a bit, but I moved into a townhouse with some friends in the early 90s. And we had nothing. We literally had no furniture, no, we at one point we were sitting in like the lawn chairs in the living room. And I, like the week we moved in, I went to a video store and they were like, free posters, just take them. So I took like an armload of them and just put video posters all over the house. So I remember we had the Dennis Leary, Kevin Spacey, what was that movie called? The Ref?
The Ref, yeah.
We had the Ref on the wall. And like, and it was funny because my roommate was like, I've never seen any of these. And I was like, no, me either.
Just ignore it. Never mind. That's not the point.
The point is to have wall covering, sir. And I did end up getting a really awesome Juliana Hatfield poster too there.
Yeah,
it was for years.
I had they gave me one that was like they had reissued The Godfather and Godfather Part 2 on VHS.
Oh yeah.
With these posters, like a portrait of Brando holding the cat. And then another one, there were these long, thin ones. And then this long, thin one of Pacino, like painted by the same, artist. And they gave them both to me. Like, they would put stuff aside and go, we're probably not going to have room for these on the wall. Do you want them? Like, fuck yeah. And they'd give me this stuff. And, then once you got to know, once they kind of saw me, coming, or we would start to compare notes on, what did you think of that? Like, I thought it was okay. It could have been, or I remember when people started to understand that a new film was going to come out on a certain day. Yeah. And there'd be a wait list to get whatever these they had. And they would always just slide me a copy. Like, people waiting for this for 2 days, but here, try and take it, take it on here. And this is like pre, Batman, sell through tape, and Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah, tapes cost like $100.
Yeah, tapes were pricey. I remember the first time, I think my cousin again either bought or rented Star Wars. It was that CBS or whatever, CBS Fox video box, those big boxes, and it was like the notion of like this thing which already seemed not a distant memory, but it was already a significant number of, because the last time I'd seen it would have been the 79 re-release, or 78 or 79 re-release for Star Wars in the theater. Whenever that hit, which I think was 82 or 83, maybe that thing.
82, because I think I was in the 6th grade.
82.
I remember it. I remember it really well because it was big news.
Oh, it was huge news. And I think it was at that point in time, it might have been the briefest time between theatrical to video or something, but he had a copy. I don't remember if it was rented or he bought it, but to sit down and watch that, it just blew my mind. Like, I can't believe I'm sitting here watching this right now. Like,
yeah.
Insane. And then there was all the, catching up with the things I needed to see or wanted to see, or those weird, you and I have talked about this before too, of like that weird recognition of a video box that you walked past dozens of times, and then suddenly you're 35, and you're flipping around the TV one night and you're like, oh, that's that video box.
I never wanted to rent that, but I'm going to watch it now.
That's that Dak Rambo film I didn't rent or whatever. And there's
and then you're buying it on Blu-ray and you're like, where is my life going?
And you're about it. But then it was like by 80, I want to say 90 or 91, I was working at a video store. It was called Home Video, and this little place that I would go to with these, and again, I think about these guys behind the counter smoking cigarettes behind the counter at this first video store. The tape sometimes smelled of cigarette smoke, and they were movie buffs. They were, pre-internet movie buffs. They all were kind of beardy and smoking, and like, Jason, did you like that thing we recommended? Why don't you try this? And they'd like try to turn me on to stuff and, sell me ketamine. No, I'm kidding. They didn't do that. But they were strange characters. They were kind of like movie nerds, but pre-internet, movie nerds. And by the time I got to this other video store that I found a little further away, it was called Home Video. It was like
amazing title.
It was like
stay up all night.
It was like walking into, Children's Palace, having just been at the toy aisle at Target or something.
Yeah.
The difference in the size of these, and it was just like, and that's where my like super duper movie education started to come.
Isn't it amazing? Like that for me, there was a couple of different shops. There was one like a bike ride away that had all kinds of weird stuff. They had the Buck Rogers episodes on VHS, I think, like 5 or 6, and they had Battlestar Galactica episodes on VHS, and I watched renting those.
Yeah.
But there was one right by my high school, and that was the second time I rented a VCR. I think it was in the 8th grade, and I rented Destination Moonbase Alpha, which was the Space 1999, movie, and I forget the other film I rented, but it was just pure schlock. And Metal Storm, the Destruction of Jared Sin, another Charles Band film, and another like hard lesson in don't rent something because of the box, and
that in the theater because the commercial.
Yeah, they played that on the like a movie preview channel that I've discussed here before, and it looks so good.
At the end of the trailer, the villain like turns to the camera, raises his arm, and these
spray
components come out, and it sprays. And I'm going, what the? I've never seen a villain spray. Yeah. What is this? And it was in 3D. I'm pretty sure it was in 3D. And I went and saw it in the theater, and it was like, rip off.
Renting it was like, oh, I did it again.
Well, don't you think? I was thinking, just to interject, because you said movie poster a couple times. We've talked about movie poster art. It made me think of, in prepping for this kind of, or thinking about video stores and that box art where you go, okay, that looks interesting. And then you realize it's nothing like, I mean, I'm not talking total schlock. By the time you get to the late 80s, early 90s, it's just like absolute garbage. But
like the Asylum crap and
I'm talking like prior to that, where what it kind of reminds me of is, remember the stories about like Hammer Studios. They would sometimes sell a movie on a poster.
Yeah, that was more of an AIP thing, but totally.
did it too, but Hammer did it too, where they would say like, well, this is what we're thinking for the seven brides of Sinbad or something, and they'd make the freaking poster, and it was almost like that's what it starts to remind me of, is like this. Is the movie going to be that? I don't know, but it's going to come out on video cassette at some point, and that's where we're going to make our money. Because wouldn't you agree that like we'll get back to the education and like affinity for stuff, but wouldn't you say that the real like the straight to the when they discovered there was like a direct to video audience, that Charles Band stuff and
like Full Moon and that sort of thing.
Full Moon. Would you say that was like late 80s where that started to kick off, kind of like really?
I think actually the direct to video market, I think, really had its heyday in the 90s because you could buy the stuff too.
Yeah, but I mean, when did they sort of understand that, like, look, this shit doesn't really need to hit theaters. We'll just get it right onto video cassette. Was that
probably it started? You're right. Now that I think of it, it was probably the late 1980s where you started getting that made to video thing, where things would, like sometimes I watch stuff and I look it up, and you go, oh, this actually made it to theaters,
right?
It made it to theaters for like 2 weeks,
right?
And then it ended up on video, and that's where it's popular, stuff like Chopping Mall and a lot of this stuff where I was like, oh, I always thought, because where I lived, we didn't have many, like, that 26 theater mall thing. So, a lot of stuff just got passed over. In fact, I remember having to take 2 trains to see the Elvira movie because I needed to see that at the theater.
Was that 88? 88?
Yeah, I think so. But it was like, and RoboCop, I had to go right downtown Toronto to see it.
I mean, it would be like this. It would be, and I could be wrong about this. Someone's probably going to correct me, but my mall of choice was the Maplewood Mall. Maplewood Mall had a theater that had 6 screens. I think in 80 or 81, they added a Maplewood 2 theater that had 6 more screens. And at that time, I believe in the country, that was the largest number of theaters in one spot. Like a multiplex kind of thing. And each one had one big main theater and then these smaller ones. They weren't like 30 seaters, but they were decent size. And then we had like the Harmar area that had the Harmar Theater, which was huge, the main theater, and then that had 2 small theaters, which eventually they made like 6 more smaller screens. And I remember watching Octopussy on like one of the smaller screens or something. So, but at that time it was like, that was that you had the main feature and you had the 2 secondaries. To find a theater that would even play like, I don't know how I found Metal Storm. It must have been.
I think that got a pretty good release.
Did it?
Yeah, I think it did. I don't know why I think that, but
I think the commercials ran on Saturday mornings too.
Well, for me, and I mentioned this in the last one we did, there was a paid channel preview channel on my cable, and I would watch all the trailers like all the time.
Yeah.
Because we just didn't have very many channels.
Right.
And so Metal Storm was one, like Fear No Evil and all that stuff. You just sit there and watch the trailer and over again.
And then you had this sort of phenomenon of these things that I would read about. And when you get a copy of Cinefantastique, for example, and let's say it's got I'm thinking of this as a great Tim Burton issue, so the Batman issue from '89. That wasn't just about the movie; it was about Burton's career up to that point. It was really, right. But then as whenever you got further back in the magazine, the articles got smaller and the titles got more obscure, and you'd think, I'm never gonna, El Topo or something like, or it wasn't Topo, it was Santa Sangre, the Jodorowsky film. Yeah. I found about it through Cinefantastique, but I didn't see it until like a year after it came out when I found it on VHS. Like it would have played one art house theater in my town sort of. So then it became that where it was like the more art house stuff or the weirder stuff or do you remember that? Do you remember the two? I remember this, like these 2 films happening fairly close together, which was Body Double, which I think was 84 or 85, maybe, the De Palma film.
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah.
And I think there was one called Crimes of Passion.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was Kathleen Turner and Anthony Hopkins. No,
Right.
Anthony Perkins.
Anthony Perkins. Yeah, she was. I remember that one because it's particularly strange.
Yes. These might not get an R rating. Like, how are we gonna? And so you start to hear about these things that were like forbidden fruit.
Oh, dirty movies. Yeah.
But you'd be like, it's not dirty. It's like, there might be some nudity.
Well, that's why the 80s were kind of a golden age for a 16-year-old boy who liked looking at boobies, because you could rent comedies.
Right.
But I remember the one, and I was going to bring this up. The Century Home Video, which was downtown Whitby, they had a copy of Butterfly with Pia
Zadora and Stacy Keach.
And I wanted to rent that so bad, but the lady behind the counter knew my number, and she would always like, I tried a couple times, you're not getting that. And what's really funny is I got rejected, and it's like, all right, I'm going to rent this movie, which I had seen on television, a little film called The Vampire Lovers. Oh, and she's like, okay, that's fine. It's an old movie. And it's like, I didn't know The Vampire Lovers actually had a ton of nudity in it because I'd seen it on television.
Right. How could
so I get it home, and it's like, oh, this is much better. And, like a couple of days later, she wasn't working, and I watched Butterfly, which is horrible. Just a terrible film.
Were you disappointed? Because it's fucking horrible.
It is. I remember going like, oh, this is not what I was,
I remember. So those two that I think both I would have seen on VHS. I don't even know if I saw the Kathleen Turner one. It reminds me of that era, that mid to late 80s era, where suddenly there were things that were starting to hit VHS that I think that was part of the marketing as well, is that the manufacturers, the makers went, not everyone can get to this, but it's one thing to go seek out Betty Blue, at the art house cinema and try to get in as a 17-year-old or 16-year-old. It's another thing to be able to just rent it and take it home and, do the art, it's very tasteful and art, but, Betty Blue was like a coming of age, film, because that was so naked. And I remember one of the things you had to do at the video store. I worked there for like a year and a half, and somebody snuck me like a lifetime membership, which meant each rental was $1. So I would sometimes rent 2 and 3 movies a night.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Get them back and just plow through this stuff. But every few days that you'd work there, you had to get out the dreaded list to call homes that have not returned.
Oh, yeah.
And every third one was like, oh, hi, is this Mrs. I'm looking for Kenneth Johnson. He's at school right now. What kind of? Oh, is this Kenneth? This is his mother. What do you want? There's a video cassette that needs to come back and get. No, that's impossible. We always return all our, of course it was something like, Betty Blue or
I gotta stop you right there. I was that guy once. It was brutal.
Boys. Yeah, well, whatever, you're making the call and you got to tell the parent, like, this is the title, like you're going through this list, or you get someone that's just embarrassed that's the title you have to bring back. You don't want to get the wife that's renting some filthy.
Oh, yeah. So here's my tale. Local video store right across the street from my high school. I found a rare, like video stores sometimes, like every video store in my town had freaking Watership Down in the children's section. It got to the point where it was just like, does anyone know what this is? It is not a kid's film.
We should be forced on children to say, this is what life is like, kids. Get ready.
Rabbit's dying. So this local video store had a copy of a movie called 2069, A Sex Odyssey.
Great.
Classic in the sci-fi section.
Yeah.
Because it's a nudie. It's not a porno.
What are you gonna? Gonna put it in documentaries?
Yeah,
I mean,
well, but this woman would watch us like a hawk. She wouldn't let us rent anything dirty. But there it was in the sci-fi section, so I rented it, and I can't remember the circumstance, but it was hard to watch it in my home. You had to kind of like pick your battles.
oh, absolutely.
And I think I kept it a day late, like hoping to, watch it unencumbered of family members. And that dreaded call came in. My mom got it, and she heard the title and went, "What kind of film is that?" And then my dad's like, "Is this a dirty movie?" And he's like, "Pop it in." And so we watched like 10 minutes of it together, and I was, you could have bought me for a nickel. And,
Oof.
I think the old man was mostly amused, but like I was ready to just jump off a roof, right?
Oh,
this is not the afternoon I wanted to have.
you
And
know,
my mom's mad at me, and then he goes, "All right, hop in my car, we'll return it." And my dad had this gigantic red Cadillac, like the world's biggest car, and he pulled up right in front of the video store, and like, oh god, like it was just, it's a humiliation that I still like get the, oh god,
that's bad, but I'll tell you, I can top it.
Oh god.
Only in the sense that it's not video cassettes, but there was I'm sure a lot of people in the country know what I'm talking about. There was a cable system, if you didn't have HBO, whatever, you get this thing called Spectrum.
Oh yeah.
In America, and if you turned the dial, and we had a digital one where you punched in the numbers like a telephone. So I could channel 4 and then doot. And when my mom would go to bed, you could go to channel 23 after 11 o'clock at night. They would run like 1 or 2, what now are very mild, pornos.
Softcore.
But it wasn't, you couldn't see, the picture was always kind of scrambled. But if every now and then it would kind of out into an.
What are you, Mo Sislak?
Oh, I think hang on a minute. And then like, or it would be sort of like a negative image, like a photo negative. And you're like, I think those are.
Oh God, I remember. I think I watched an entire Amityville 2 like that once.
Oh, I was every Friday or Saturday night. If I was downstairs alone and I got to that, that was my special time. Well, my brother Gino comes in one night and I didn't hear the door. He's like, "What are you watching?" I'm like, "Jesus God, what do you mean?" And I'd flip it, and he's like, "Well, what was that?" Yeah. And now I'm trying to like get in good with him because he's the rebel and he smells of cigarettes and booze at this point. What do you? I'm like, "Well, actually, you can go to the." And so he's like, "Really?" And then I show him. He goes, "Whoa, that's pretty wild." Like Friday, Saturday, no kidding. And we watched one. You're trying to make it out, and then maybe a week or two later or something. And there was one time not long after where it was like he was screwing up with something. I don't know what it was, but my parents were separated, but my dad was trying to put his foot down and be like, "Yeah," and he's getting lectured. He's got to be like 18 or something, maybe he's not out of the house. And my mother's saying, "You don't do this, you don't do that, whatever." And I didn't know. I'm in the corner, like looking at a log or minding my own business. And out of nowhere, Gino goes, "Oh yeah? Well, what about your other son?" And he points to me, and I like look at him like, "Oh my God!" And he goes, "What do you mean?" He's like, "He's watching pornos on Fridays and Saturday nights on this television." And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about, you."
As the bus wheels hit you.
I mean, I started shaking, like the color drained. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to lie out of this because he's going to get up and hit the television.
Yeah, he's going
to. The scrambled signal and the jig is up. There would have been no way he would have known about that. And of course I went, I didn't know what it was. Sometimes I get sleepy and I hit the wrong channel or something. But I got busted. That was it. Spectrum was over in front of both parents, and he threw me under the bus so fast. And to this day,
did you ever speak to him again?
Yeah, it took a long time, but to this day I mentioned. He said, "I don't know what you're talking about." I said, the other day I talked to him. I said, Do you realize that when I was a kid, we were in Kmart one time, and you went over to the the vinyl album of the Who, "The Kids Are All Right," that coincided with the movie that came out in '78, the documentary. He all of a sudden he comes over and goes, "Hey, come here, open your jacket." I'm like, "What?" And he like unzips my windbreaker. He had opened the vinyl and taken out the booklet that came with the vinyl album and rolled it up like a newspaper and shoved it in my jacket. He's like, they're not gonna mess with you. And he zipped my jacket up. I'm like 7, and he's putting contraband in my jacket to get out of the store because he wanted the booklet. He would do stuff like that. He'd use me as a mule to put stuff in to get out of the store. So yeah, and I mentioned those. He does. I don't know. I never did that stuff. I don't know what you're talking. I would never do that. I would tell mom and dad what you were. I would never do that. I'm like, well,
selective memory.
Yeah.
As John Nathan Turner said, the memory cheats.
Yes, exactly. Messed me up for life. But yeah, that was kind of like your what is this movie? You should have said like, I thought it was Kubrick.
I thought it was a space movie. Yeah, no, they weren't that dumb. But so
it became. Didn't you feel like it was a certain point where it became, here's the stuff I need to see in the theater when it hits or need to find. But now you have this new avenue by the early '90s or whatever it was, where I think the window became. The window initially was like by '89. I think the window was. The movie came out like June of '89.
Yeah,
it would hit video cassette like the following spring.
It really kicked into high gear for me because I actually bought my own. My parents bought a new TV and I got the old TV. Mm-hmm. In fact, it was still working up until a couple years ago. We finally got rid of it.
You had your own
TV. I had my own color television, Philips, and I bought my own video player. I couldn't afford a full VCR at the time, but I bought a VCP, which cost me a bundle in high school. But I could rent, watch movies. Yeah, I had a separate room in the house, the sunroom, where I could. I had an old easy chair and a VCR and a color television. So that was
probably like a little bachelor pad kind of.
Little bachelor pad. It was about '87, and
yeah, we only had the one VCR. We never had a second one, but I spent a lot of time, alone. Like I had the house to myself kind of. So it was, it got to a point, well, by the early '90s, I was out and doing my own thing and everything. But when this addiction about movies sort of came along, it was like, I always had this sense, and I think you have the same sense because I know didn't you have that Leonard Maltin book too? Or am I thinking?
Oh yeah, I memorized it. Totally.
Yeah. And so I would go through the book and highlight the movies I'd seen and then keep a list of all the ones I needed to write down that I eventually had to find or see.
Yeah, most definitely.
It became this like, oh my God, there's just not enough time. Like I need to catch up on so much stuff, so much, horror, so much 60s stuff, so much, so many, weird action films or Italian Westerns or whatever. And suddenly you had this avenue where most of the stuff was accessible, like I'd say 60% of the book was already kind of hitting VHS. But what I was going to say was that it's not that I think by the early '90s, the window from theatrical to video cassette shrunk down to like 6 months or 9 months, maybe.
Yeah, it got pretty. It depended on the film too, but yeah, it became a really interesting market of new releases, and it was amazing. Like you would honestly, it became that thing where you're like, you'd see a trailer for a movie and go, "That's a renter."
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't need this. I'll probably catch that when it's, it was safe to see. But, the event things or the bigger things you kind of had to see, And then when did you, and this to me, it is of the same kind of topic, is, video stores and like the difference in art, box art that changed from movie poster, what the video cassette was. And, like I remember the Rocketeer particularly. I love the Rocketeer one sheet, the Art Deco one sheet, but that's great as an advance. The regular poster was basically the same poster. They could have made some very sexy kind of action, action sequence, like old school, Raider style poster or something, but they didn't, and I think it hurt it in a way. But when it came on video cassette, you had the lead actor there with his helmet off, Billy Campbell, and you had Jennifer Connelly, and Dalton was on the box, and you started to notice that the VHS box art was completely different than the movie poster art, or what you saw when it came out, to market it differently to VHS. So when did you start buying commercial VHS? And did you buy your first ones at a video store?
I did. The first video I think I ever bought was I started asking, can I buy this? And the first one I remember buying was Destination Moonbase Alpha, because I was a huge Space 1999 fan, and this was the only bit of merchandise I could really find in my town.
It's weird how you grew out of that.
Yes. And it's weird how it's like literally still in this room. I still have it. And I think that was the first one. And then I would go around trying to find used tapes for sale, and I started buying a lot of those. And
about the used tape market.
Yeah, and the biggest score I ever had, I remember this, is 1990, I think. I visited my grandmother in Florida, and I found a place that rented cars for $8 a day. And these were not good cars. And I at that time, Blockbuster, $8. It was a real fun car. And when I returned it, they wouldn't drive me home. I remember that. It's like, oh no, there's no home, and I had to walk, and I think it was like 5 miles. I walked 5 miles.
So wait, what did you need the car for?
Because I didn't have a car in Florida, right? My grandmother didn't. My grandmother couldn't drive.
Right. That's right.
And so $8 a day. I remember that. I was like, that's for me, and it's like, oh, it's a horrible piece of crap, with like dents in it and broken.
Oh, the Lamborghini just left, kid. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Here's a Yugo.
Here's a crummy K car, buddy. So Blockbuster was advertising that they were blowing out old tapes. That, like, it was on the radio. Right. So I went home and I got the Yellow Pages, and I found every Blockbuster in the Clearwater, Tampa area. And I went and I got so much obscure cinema. I got a copy of Big Meat Eater, which is a Canadian film. I remember getting one of my favorites, Wild in the Streets.
Oh yeah.
Whatchamacallit?
Pryor's in that.
Yeah, and I got a Russ Meyer movie. Like it was crazy, the stuff I got. And
remind me, the Blockbuster ones, did they throw out the cardboard box and just put it in a generic?
No. They honestly still kept these all had the original sleeves. I think I still have the VHS of Wild in the Streets.
Okay.
It was an amazing, like, I went home with like a I went home with like a heavy suitcase. You know? And I'm not a huge fan of Blockbuster, because Blockbuster put all the mom and pops out of business, and
you drove that
the mom and pops were where all the flavor was,
absolutely. I never went to Blockbuster. I mean, until I think there was one out here, one or two that I went to a couple times when I couldn't find certain things when I moved to LA. But Eddie Brandt was only open, had weird hours, and you'd have to go, like, Odyssey Video had the more obscure stuff, and they had laser discs and stuff like that. But I was trying to think of this, what the first VHS tape I bought was, and I don't remember if it was, but I know it would have been something like the 89 Batman, sell-through thing or something. It would have been something like that. I can't remember where I got it, but I think it might have been ordered through the video store, because they would order it for you.
Yeah.
And then not long after, Suncoast
Right.
stores popped up, and suddenly they were everywhere. And a lot of the VHS that I bought over those years was at Suncoast. They would, the different studios would do those sell-through prices on things. I remember ordering 8.5, Fellini's 8.5, for my dad for a present once, and this had to be like 92 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think it was $80 for a copy of 8.5. I don't know where I got the money. But that's how expensive, certain titles were, because they just weren't in demand and they didn't have them, sell through. I mean, let's just pause the record for a second. Think about this. Like, we are living in an age where, like, anything you could tell me about a movie tonight, and I could track it down and probably watch it in a couple of hours. I'd find it somewhere, or streaming to rent, or something like that. I mean, this was a time where if you were into a certain director or studio or whatever, it didn't mean that the video store was going to have all the movies by that
Oh
person.
no, not at all. Yeah, that
You
was
had to
that
figure,
was a rarity. Yeah.
you had to go to different, mom and pop and more obscure places to find stuff. And then you started to know, like, the blockbuster types that you'd be like, well, we're probably going to find Casablanca, might find
Yeah.
Maltese, but we're not going to find, In a Lonely Place, the Bogart film or something. And you had to really, really do. But isn't it weird? Because it goes along with everything else that we were into, where we would obsess over this stuff and hunt for stuff,
Yeah.
and need to seek this stuff out and, watch it any way we could. To me, that's just like, when we would try to buy record albums or weird toys. And
Yeah, I remember, like, you'd be driving through and a new video store would open. The first thing I'd do is look in their sci-fi, and then I'd look in their horror. And just try to find something, unique and special in there. And I remember, like, there were some video stores, like, because anyone had new releases. That wasn't exciting to me.
right.
But you'd walk into the video store and you'd look at their back issues, I guess, and you'd go, yeah, I never need to come back here.
Right. Right. Their info or it would stop at a certain point, and you go, yeah, they're not going to have what I'm looking for. They're not going to have that particular thing. And you had to go hunt for it. But I mean,
like I said, it was always the indies. I never liked Blockbuster. I never liked I never liked whatchamacallit. There was a chain here called Jumbo Video that was just like the worst. I mean, there's just these, huge stores that had all new releases, and free popcorn, but like all the stuff in the back was just like, they just give me some movies, and just terrible schlock. And I saw some cool stuff in Jumbo, but a lot of it was just trash.
They're also. Do you remember those big CBS Fox video boxes? Because I mentioned.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I love the huge boxes.
They seem to be just about the only studio that made them that size. Everybody else.
Well, yeah, that's like the Wild West. Some guys did clamshells, and
Yeah. And then that was right around the time that Disney. Maybe I'm getting my timeline screwed up, but there was a point where all of a sudden Disney went, "Hey, we got to put out this movie on video cassette for a limited time. Get it now for the limited time. And then once it's gone, it's gone. And they had that clamshell thing, and people were just killing each other to get the newest.
Oh yeah, that was like late 80s. Like, that's around the time like when E.T. came out on VHS.
Oh yeah. And so I had Blade Runner and all the Star Wars and all the Indiana Jones and a bunch of Bond films and Bogart films and the Monty Python films and stuff like that. And then the rest was just this education. It was an incredible thing, because you felt like so much of watching, like the Siskel and Eberts of the world, or reading these magazines. I mean, like, I've talked about it before, where I wouldn't have known if there was ever any kind of sci-fi convention in the Twin Cities ever, because I was basing it off the back section of Starlog for upcoming conventions. I would look at it every month, and there was never anything happening in the Twin Cities until the Doctor Who Fan Club of America, and the 84, 85, era of suddenly exploding in America, in the mid to late 80s with Doctor Who, started doing that. And that would have been one of the first conventions I went to that was in the Twin Cities. Probably the first one was a Doctor Who one, I think. So a lot of this stuff, like the information itself, felt millions of miles away from where I lived and what my life was, that I would ever get to see certain movies and things that we read about. I'm like, well, that's never going to come to my town. How am I ever going to see that?
Well, the place that I bought the Destination Moonbase off of, they had like a catalog, and they would let me look at it. And I remember I was really into Jerry Anderson at the time, and I'd never seen Thunderbirds. And I paid $50 for a tape from FHE Video called Thunderbirds in Outer Space. And I've always found it funny that I don't like the Thunderbirds. And, I bought that tape, and it was like, oh.
Yeah. Wait, what year was that?
That would have been like 86 or 87.
$50 to spend $50 on a videotape,
and then get it home and go wah, wah,
and
that was a one and done. I never did that again. Like I just had heard so many good things about Thunderbirds. I'd never seen it, and
I remember when Python came out on VHS, what a big deal that was. And they would release these tapes, like 3 episodes per tape, over the course of however long it was. And then Doctor Who was just kind of out of my life. I wouldn't have known how to see it. It didn't run anymore. So these things were completely distant memories. All the video cassettes when I recorded it on, Channel 2 were long gone. And I don't think it was until Odyssey Video out here in LA that one day I was there, and it was many years ago, and it was just not like, it was a bad time. But all I could do was really just in the daytime just run a movie, and actually nothing's changed. It's the same life I have now, basically. But I found Revenge of the Cybermen, I think. And there was one for, I think it was Genesis of the Daleks, maybe.
I can't remember.
And rented one of the 2 of those, and it was just like this nostalgia thing. When I got it home, and just like, oh my God, I haven't seen that since 1978 or whatever it was, or 79, and here it is on VHS. Did you ever rent like music, concerts or music video type, the ones when certain artists would put out a VHS only, performance thing, like a 20-minute mini movie? Or
occasionally I did that. I didn't do it a lot because I watched enough videos as it was. I'm trying to think. I know that I owned the Michael Nesmith projects, like Television Parts, Dr. Duck's Secret Sauce. I owned that stuff because I found it at that Blockbuster thing. Just trying to think. I rented the Duran Duran one because I really wanted to see the unrated Girls on Film, because all my friends had and I hadn't.
Oh yeah, Girls on Film.
But that's probably the only one I really remember. I don't think I did a lot of that. I rented a lot of comedy.
I had comedy, and I bought quite a few comedies, and I had, that was the time when they started going, well, we can put, this artist's, all their videos on one video cassette. I
owned the Ramones one of that. I remember that.
I had the Kate Bush one. They put out one for Kate Bush to coincide with the whole story.
Oh yeah.
I had that and played that nonsense.
And of course, I had the Angela Lansbury workout because everyone did.
Who didn't?
Yeah.
I had 2, one to keep sealed.
I remember my friend and we had this long running joke about owning copies of Madame Suzatska. And my friend was like, well, you have the deluxe Laserdisc. And I'm like, you have an autographed copy by Shirley MacLaine. And neither of us have ever seen that. I don't know why that was such a
the Laserdisc of Crossing Delancey. How did you get that's a lucky.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to think of one of the things that was really cool about the video store revolution. I remember is I got to see stuff I never thought I would, like that. You remember that Brian May did that video, Starfleet, and it showed, it showed clips from this show, which was called X Bomber in Japan, but it was only like really shown in England in an English version, and that's where he got the idea to do the song because his son liked it so much. So that came out on VHS. I remember picking those up and watching them, and there was like there were certain cartoons that would get like 2 episodes on a tape, and it's like a one and done. I remember picking up some of those.
The Looney Tunes that came out. They were compilations because you'd see them at, I'd get them either at Suncoast or, when I ended up working at the Warner Brothers store in the Mall of America, they had a lot of videotapes there too. And they had all those Warner Brothers compilations, and I get a discount. So I had a bunch of those.
One of the funniest tapes I'd ever seen is like, I think Horror Express with Cushing and Lee, which is actually a really good film. Yeah, it's like in the public domain. So you could go from video store to video store and see a copy of it, and it would be different from the copy you just saw. Like every fly-by-night video guy put it out with like a different cover.
Yeah, do you remember that boom? Like in the I want to say late 80s, when all of a sudden everywhere you went there was a copy of It's a Wonderful Life and Laurel and Hardy, like Way Out West. And
Godzilla versus Megalon was like, I think Toho's shored this up now, but it was kind of considered public domain at one point. And you would go and see, like, you'd always find a copy of it, and it would have a weird cover. Either it wouldn't be like, it would be a picture of a different Godzilla movie, or just a monster on the cover, and it's like, because I don't think they had the rights to use Godzilla on the box properly.
And those were all like, when you'd find them in those bins, they were like $5.
Yeah.
And
they were new. Those were like the days when, like, you could find new movies. Like, I was thinking that I remember going to a discount store, and they had all these horrible movies, like in that black case with the looked like a photocopied cover, and they were new and they were $5. And that Godzilla versus, that's where I got my copy of Godzilla versus Megalon.
Yeah, they were, like I'm saying, new sealed copies of these movies. Yeah, it was public domain, and they were everywhere. They were at supermarkets.
Yeah,
they, department stores. They just were everywhere. And I didn't understand what public domain was. I just thought, how are these only $5? Like the last movie I bought was like $35. I'm like, so I had a bunch of those, like they had different Abbott and Costello ones, I think, and Laurel and Hardy, and whatever horror films were,
and the Max Fleischer Supermans.
And the Max Fleischer Supermans. I had that multiple times, different video cassettes of that. What do you think about there does seem to be a resurgence, not in the manufacture of them, but there certainly is a collector resurgence for VHS tapes. Like, I think certainly people on the post on Pod Stallions, page and stuff about some VHS.
Oh yeah, no, that's a passionate thing. I mean, that I don't have any issue with it whatsoever. I mean, I understand it. It's like collecting vinyl. I collect VHS, but I don't collect it. It's like ornamental. Like, I'll never pop it in.
It's like more of a elitist level for you.
It's like that. I always wanted to own that, so now I do. And but I get it. I totally do. But, like, I like Blu-ray, and I won't trade.
Right.
But I can honestly remember when Whitby Video was closing down. I heard they were closing down. They're blowing down their movies. I ran and got their copy of Kentucky Fried Movie. Because I love Kentucky Fried Movie, and B, I was like, I'll never see it again unless I buy it.
Grab
You
this
know,
copy.
yeah,
It.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
it was I feel, obviously everyone's got it a little easier now to just, stream something quickly and you can tell them about somebody about something and boom, they get it. But again, it's back to the hunt. All the stuff we had to hunt for made it, most of the time, made it sweeter when you got it. Sometimes it was like, that's the thing everybody's been talking about. Like, that's the movie that looked so cool on the box, or,
yeah, yeah. I've been experiencing that a lot lately because I've been looking stuff up that I've got time. I'm sitting in the studio and it's like I'll put a movie on, and Tubi is like a video store, like an 80s video store, and you sit there and go okay, I've never seen this. I'm gonna pop this on, and then 30 minutes in, you're like, I get why I didn't rent this. Although occasionally, and I did say this the other day, was one film that I never rented because it looked like a slasher film was Dead End Drive-In, a Brian Trenchard Smith film. And I put it on Tubi about a year ago and was like, damn, I love this movie. And it's not a slasher film. It's it's a dystopian future film. And I now own it on Blu-ray. I found it luckily used last week, and so that works both ways. I don't know if I ever told you this, but in college, I knew a guy that owned a store, and he was going out of business or whatever, and he handed me some stuff, and he says, if you fill out these forms, you'll get free videos. And I pretended my basement apartment was a video store. I forget what I called it, A1 Video or something like that. And I would get a box, mainly from Full Moon. Full Moon was really invested in me. I got cardboard standees and posters and screener copies for about 3 months or 4 months. I just remember I got just a box would arrive and it'd be full of movies and posters, and I'd be like, thanks, Full Moon.
Wait, this guy, did he just fill this out and they'll just send you promos?
Yeah, he was like, you want this? And I was like, yes.
No
I don't know why he wasn't interested in it, but I remember that. He's like, I don't want this. And I was getting screener copies. I remember the first movie I got was great. It was Castle Freak, which is
the
Stuart Gordon made it.
Stuart Gordon?
Yeah.
That's a boy. Do you know the story about that?
No.
The making of it and stuff, and
no.
how.
Oh, I know it's got Jeffrey Combs in it.
It's funny you mention that because that's another one of those things where you and I talk about our crazy nights of our eyes are propped open like Clockwork Orange style, just going up to Prime and just going, what is that? Put that in my queue. Put that in my queue.
Yeah.
And I watched it a year ago, and then I kind of read up on it, and he got funding for it. They went over to, I want to say Italy, maybe he filmed that thing. And it's Barbara Crampton and Combs. I think it's the third one they did together with Gordon.
Yeah.
And they ran out of money, or they weren't getting paid. No, that was it. They weren't getting paid. They hadn't been paid. The crew and them and the talent hadn't been paid for the last 3 weeks or something. And it turns out the people that said they had the money didn't. And then somebody, I think that was a band thing too. I think it was a Charles.
It's a Full Moon film, yeah.
A Full Moon. He all of a sudden was like, I'm gonna need the castle in Italy, so you guys better wrap it up or something. And they're like, what? When? And they had to rush to finish it. And I don't know whatever happened with the money, but his thing was like, look, if we stop now, then all the work we've been putting into this it'll never see the light of day. If you guys can all suffer with me, we can finish this thing. And they did, out of loyalty to him. but I guess it was a nightmare. And most of the takes seemed to be like first or second take, and they moved on because it's shot really strangely. It's shot like sometimes he's like up above the characters and doesn't do any close-ups, doesn't do any like two shots or close-up or anything. It's just like it's really strange the way he filmed it. But I guess it was a real nightmare to finish. But I don't know if I saw it when it hit video. I think it was one of those boxes I walked past, and the director of Reanimator, H.P. Lovecraft, blah blah blah, and then seeing it on the Prime or flipping around like that, I went, okay, now I'm finally going to sit and watch this. And I don't think I ever saw it way back when. Isn't that crazy what a weird title to bring up? And I suddenly...
Yeah, no, it's just, I remembered getting that, and then I started getting stuff like Shrunken Heads, and I remember I never watched Shrunken Heads. Like it just was sealed on my shelf for years because it's like, the luster. What really makes me laugh is I moved out of that apartment, and you're not like, I didn't even change credit card addresses at that time. So I often wonder if like the person living there still got like VHS tapes in the mail.
Full moon shit for like a decade.
Yeah. What is this, Robot Jocks? Like, why am I getting this?
Guy ends up starting a studio or something and becomes because you left all that behind. Yeah, but it's funny because what I think of too when I think of the video store thing and things like what you just said, the Castle Freak or whatever, is these movies that I'd also see ads for in the back of like Fangoria, like Motel Hell, and stuff like that. And I wouldn't have seen those, and then to come across a box in 86 or something or 85 and go, oh, that's the movie that the ad
I can remember there was a video store. Like, video stores started popping up so much, like in 83. They were literally everywhere, and one was in an empty building in a car lot. Like, it was a used car lot, and they had like a little side office they weren't using, and that turned into a video store. And it was like, this is the worst. Like, it was behind a car lot, behind a bowling alley, and they put a video store here. And I think I rented them. I think that's where, I can't remember if we had to rent our VCR from there, and then we went to another store to rent our movies. But this guy had a copy of the Microwave Massacre.
Oh my God!
And it was like in a huge box,
With your boy who's in Star Crash, isn't he in Vincent? The guy. He was in Maniac and he was in Microwave Massacre. The guy. He's one of the villains in Star Crash.
Joe Spinell.
Is
he in Microwave Massacre?
I think he's the guy. I think his name in the movie is literally Mike Rowave.
No, he's not in that. No, the Microwave Massacre turns out to be a bit of a comedy, I think.
Wasn't it? Because I remember it in Fangoria. I remember pictures of it in Fangoria with like a head and a microwave or something.
Yeah. It's got like, I later on finally looked at it, and it's definitely done on tongue in cheek. It's a black comedy. I wonder what film you're thinking of.
Is it because was he in Maniac? Wasn't he in Maniac?
Yeah, he's in Maniac. He's in the last horror film.
He was
in a lot of stuff.
And wasn't he in Star Crash?
Yes, he was
okay. So maybe because I remember an image of him in the magazine with the microwave with the head in it. But again, I haven't thought of this movie since.
No, it's completely. I think it's a mixed up image.
Joe Spinell's idea.
Yeah, maybe he wrote it. Maybe you're right.
Yeah, he probably wrote it. One of his late night writing sessions. But then finally getting to see some of these things that there was no way I was going to see.
Yeah. The back of Starlog was really influential for me on that too.
Yeah, all the ads, Porky's 2 the next day. That was a big one. No. But
it's the best of the franchise.
I remember, do you remember when they advertised Porky's 2 the next day in Starlog?
No, did they do that?
It was like the back inside ad of one of the Return of the Jedi issues of Starlight, the Mark Hamill interview issue of Starlight. Boy, this magazine's changed. I think I'm
Porky's 2 the next day was a really bad idea.
Yeah.
The other day, as a joke, because it's on Prime, I finally put on Porky's 3, which I've never seen, and just the first opening scene, those guys are like 40, it's just.
Doesn't that one involve isn't there like a Ku Klux Klan?
No, that's Porky's 2.
Is that Porky's 2? Okay.
Porky's 2 is it's awful.
They're so different. I get the three of them mixed up all the time.
Porky's 1 has some very funny scenes in it.
Yeah, and oddly enough, speaking of horror, Bob Clark. What a weird career he had.
Yeah, children shouldn't play with dead things.
Black Christmas. Murder by
Christmas Story.
Black Christmas Story and Porky.
Black Christmas Story, yeah.
What a weird CV that guy had.
Yeah.
Like Baby Geniuses or something. He directed something weird, like a John Hughes thing, something, and then I think he died.
He died in an accident. He was hit by a drunk driver.
Yep.
And
Boy, when's the last time you saw the original Black Christmas?
Oh no, a long time ago. And you ever seen his movie? And I saw this at a video. I found this at a video store, Death Dream, where it's like a monkey's paw thing where a woman wishes her son would come back from Vietnam. Ooh. And he's dead, but that he comes back from Vietnam and he's like a monster. And yeah, I remember liking it.
Check it out. I'll definitely. God knows I'll be able to find it in about 10 minutes. I mean, we really are living in this. We grew up in a great time. All the stuff that we love and all the stuff that influenced us, and we still have an affection for.
Bob Clark directed the greatest buddy cop film ever made, Loose Cannons.
He directed Loose Cannons?
Mm-hmm.
Aykroyd and Hackman.
Mm-hmm.
Combo. As long as you're looking things up, will you look up Microwave Massacre? I want to know who the lead is now. It's bugging me.
Oh, I just had that up. Damn it. I saw Loose Cannons in the theater, and I wish I hadn't have thought of it.
Holy, you saw the
opening night.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that's what I said.
You didn't see Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, but you managed to make.
So I saw Last Crusade in the theater opening night. I didn't see the Temple of Doom.
But you managed to make it to Loose Cannons.
Oh yeah, well you gotta
get your priorities straight.
The star of Microwave Massacre is Jackie Vernon. He was the voice of Frosty the Snowman.
Yes, he was. It's Jackie Vernon. Oh my God. Why did I think it was Joe Spinner? But the fact that it's Jackie Vernon, it makes it all worthwhile. What a weird, holy crap, Jackie Vernon.
Yeah.
Now I gotta find that.
Yeah, there's some clips of it on YouTube. I don't know if the whole film's
Speaking of VHS and boxes and things that go, oh, maybe I'll eventually see that. Do you remember the one? Oh, it's just awful. Very much like a Fangoria thing, or like you'd hear about this legend, almost like a Video Nasty kind of thing. But I think it was called Pieces, where the kids making a human jigsaw basically out of dead victims, kind of. Do you remember that movie Pieces?
I remember the box.
Yeah. Well, I came across it some time ago, late one night, 3 a.m, and it is just awful. But not just the subject matter, but just really kind of vile, just horrible shit in this movie.
It's a Video Nasty.
It's a Video Nasty. Yeah. Well, how about those? Like. What was the one? What's the one? Not Cannibal Holocaust, but
Cannibal Holocaust is pretty. Was a Video Nasty.
Claimed to be real footage.
Faces of Death.
Faces of Death.
Oh yeah, we watched those. Yeah, I remember
Legendary
those.
of death. And then, of course, eventually pornography, because my cousin David managed to find a way to get a hold of
Now,
actual.
now in Canada, most of the stores had little saloon doors. You know, for the adult movie section. In my neck of the woods, it was pointless because we didn't have triple X films; they were all edited.
Oh,
There was an Ontario censorship board, which my cousin pointed out was really stupid when you lived on the border of Quebec, where there was no such, like, he just drove to Quebec.
right.
But I didn't have that luxury. But yeah, they had these like saloon doors in most of the stores, and they would be squeaky.
See, it's the one. The mom and pop one had another branch further away. And I remember one night in high school being with some buddies, and like, this is like, yeah, we're having a party. Let's get a porn movie. Your parents are. And the only video store that was nearby was the other branch of the store that was, 10 miles away where I lived or whatever. Never thinking that any employees that knew me at the other place were going to be in this place. And we went in, fill the shit out, and like, oh, hey, Jason, what's going on? What are you doing over at this neck of the woods?
Oh.
I'm not Jason. You're thinking of somebody else. I gotta go. I had like a fake mustache and a beard and like a top hat.
Abort the mission.
But the big giant place, they had a back room. It wasn't a saloon door, but you think it's being sort of sneaky. Every movie there had you'd bring the box up, and then they'd go get the case, and the cases were like gray with maroon lettering on them.
Yeah, which means everyone knows that you're
the cases
renting an adult film.
The porno section were maroon with gray lettering on them. So if you came to, you walked in or out with one of those, everybody knew what you had anyway. And one night, it was my ex, like, science professor from high school came up to the counter, and it's like, oh, hey, Mr. Johnson, how are you doing? Good, Jay. How are you? How's the family? Like, just ignoring what's in my hand.
Yeah.
Zap this movie and I'm gonna get your movie real quick, and I'll be right back. But there'd be, when you'd have to put the movies back in that back room, there were guys back there just like reading the boxes, reading the back. What's the story about? What's this? Maybe I think I've
what's the plot? In fact, there used to be a store across the street from me when I was living in Toronto, and it was called Video Addict, and I called it Porno Addict because it was the worst excuse for a video store. It was like two rooms, and one room was the size of a closet. It was the front, and they had some new movies. And then there was a beaded curtain, and the whole store, the rest of the store, was pornography. And I went in there a lot because no one rented the new releases. Like, it literally was just a porno store. And so, if like when Pulp Fiction was new, I just walk in and like there it was.
Right.
Nobody was renting Pulp Fiction. The movie art decor around the corner, the art house store, that you could never get it,
right.
But at
Dinky Town, I can get it
at Video Addict, and there'd be guys coming out of the curtain going, "What's this one like? Is it good?" And you'd just be like, "Wow, this is really laissez-faire in here. Like, you guys are all just letting it hang out, aren't you?" Yeah, it was weird. But one of my favorite pranks to pull when I was a young idiot was a couple of the stores would have the adult titles way up top, and they'd have the tag system of red is VHS and black is. So I would try to find a movie with an innocent title, and then try to find a children's movie
swap
with the same title or similar, and swap them.
Classic.
So everyone got a surprise.
Classic VHS swap. Some poor guard for life putting in the wrong movie.
Well, actually, I was hoping to get, ruin some gentleman's Friday night.
But you didn't think about the family. was doing
Maybe
their
I didn't care. Maybe I was 15.
It's pizza night, Lady and the Tramp. This is not the Lady and the Tramp that
Yes,
you
it
think
is.
it's a different kind of Lady and the
The
Tramp.
Tramp is played by Ron Jeremy.
I'm afraid. Isn't it funny that some of this we do also have that thing in common where we have to go to certain seedier areas to get the legit thing we're looking for.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
deal with, like, sort of around the meet me in the back of the store. I've got a copy of that thing. Or like, yeah, and get you a bootleg of that album or whatever.
Yeah.
And first time I finally found Doctor Who Monthly was at a shop called Schindler's downtown St. Paul that was just like 60% pornographic magazines. And my brother took me and was like, okay, just stay over there. Just get that, find your thing, and I'm gonna go back and do some shopping.
I remember I was in Manhattan, 2000, and every store I walked by, like in this one area, had like kung fu movies in the window.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh man, and so I love kung fu movies, and I went into this one store and I bought like 2 or 3 movies.
Mm-hmm.
And then it started to dawn on me that this was like Giuliani trying to clean up porno stores, and they had to carry a certain amount of non-pornography to stay in business.
Yes. Yeah.
So like somebody made a killing just dumping boxes of kung fu movies off like and they were like window dressing.
Yeah.
So I was like, it didn't dawn on me because I think I went to 2 or 3 of the stores.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, oh, I've been going in and out of porn stores all day.
Yeah.
Because I think it dawned on me like after, because one of the stores had booths. I was like, why does this store have booths?
Kind of a dead giveaway.
Yeah, it's kind of, yeah.
But you behaved. And I think that's the lesson to take away. Even when it's around you, just get in, get what you need, get out.
Yeah. I wanted to get a Sonny Chiba movie. That was really important to me.
Sir, you came to TNA Palace. What were you looking for, Sonny?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Once again, we've probably revealed too much, or maybe you've learned something. Maybe you've had some other experiences. But I get the feeling there's going to be a lot of comments after this episode, people talking about their VHS adventures. And I'd love to see anybody, post photos of their collections if they have, started collecting VHS again or something. I'd love to see some of that. I see it a lot on Twitter. I see a lot of VHS collecting on Twitter feeds.
Yeah. We should probably start a thread in the Pod Stallions group about VHS store memories. This would be a fun one.
Yeah, and also things like just occurred to me, the posters and stuff we talked about. There were like, I got some standees too. Like I got sometimes they'd have these cardboard, either the counter standee or they'd have like a half size standee that would have been in the theater. I would get some of those sometimes too.
Yeah,
like
I remember that.
Countertop standee that was just promoting a film or a thing, and it didn't have like copies of the movie in it or something, but that became really big. And little premiums. Oh, premiums. Shit, we didn't talk about this. The studios would send out premiums to the stores with their certain X number of copies that you bought, kind of thing, for the store to have on display. And I had a girlfriend at the time that was working part-time in a video store, and I one time went in and took out shouldn't be saying this on air, but I stole some premiums that were in the case. Probably got her fired. I'm a jerk. Anyway, it was a long time ago. I was very young, but I had one of those paperweights for Reanimator that they put out.
Way.
A head in the tray with the logo on the side, and I had a baseball with the logo for The Natural stamped on the baseball.
Wow. Yeah. I don't think I ever got anything all that cool.
Yeah. I got quite a few bits and bobs, and then they started doing it when they would put out VHS. They would sometimes put a premium inside,
Yeah.
or Costco, whatever. And then it was a real thing for DVDs. Like Best Buy and Target would do it all the time, and nobody really does it anymore. But the first time I remember it was the video stores. You'd find these weird things in different stores on the countertop. Like, where did you get that? That keychain. And it was, or they'd have stuff, premiums they'd give to customers that tie in to promote the film and stuff. Yeah, all that crap that we eventually made its way into the trash. But
yeah,
good times. Good memories. So there you go. There's a show.
No, that was great. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll be coming back sooner than later.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy.
Thanks. Bye. That was great, man.
I told you that was a great time.